Hi, Todd Martin here with The Walking Code. In this series of videos, I'm going to demonstrate some exercises using the core techniques. The core techniques are the foundation of the walking code, and they represent the 8 fundamental patterns of core movement that we use in all of our routine activities while we are standing with upright posture. The core techniques have been derived from the 8 fundamental techniques of Tai Chi and applied through the walking code to our normal non-Tai Chi activities like walking uphill or downhill, walking upstairs or downstairs, turning, stopping. Almost anything you do while upright uses the same patterns of core movement used over and over again, and we normally use them unconsciously or subconsciously. By applying the walking code, you can add some more consciousness or mindfulness to your movements. The exercises in this series are going to use all 8 of the core techniques, so we can really get our mind connected to what our core is doing when we're moving. In this series of videos, I'm not going to go into a detailed description of the core techniques. Those descriptions are available in the Walking Code online course. They're also available now in my new book, The Walking Code, Correcting Abnormal Gait Patterns by Learning Conscious Control of Your Core. You can find that book or the online course in the links in the description section of this video. Also remember to click the like button and subscribe to this channel. In this exercise, I'm going to demonstrate a side step followed by a collection of the weight. So we're going to do a side step to the left, followed by a collection of the weight, side step to the right, collection of the weight. Going back and forth, arms relaxed at the side. We're not going to be pushing off, we're just going to be shifting the weight. In this exercise, we use the core techniques of sink and retreat. In the core technique of sink, I use flexion of my active hip, so flexion of my left hip while turning my upper part of the core to the right, away from the active hip, and my lower part of the core to the right, away from the active hip. That is sink. The other core technique that we use is retreat. In retreat, I also flex my active hip, but I turn my lower part of the core towards that active hip and my upper part of the core also towards that active hip at the same time. So those 2 core techniques, sink and retreat, are going to be done in a repeating sequence in order to step to the side and collect. We're going to begin in a standing position, and I'm going to use the core technique of sink to change my weight to my right leg, flexing my left hip, turning the upper torso and lower torso to the right. Now I'm going to take my side step by flexing my right hip, turning the sink core technique into retreat. Now my legs are in a wider than shoulder width stance. Now my upper torso is turning to the right, my lower torso is turning to the right, and my right hip is flexing. In order to change my weight and collect to the left leg, I'm going to continue flexing my right hip, but I'm going to take my upper and lower torso and turn them to the left. So that is the core technique of sink. Flexion of my right hip, upper and lower torso turning towards the left. Now I'm going to repeat this pattern going from retreat, now flexing my left hip, to sink, flexing the left hip. Retreat, flexing the right hip, to sink, flexing the right hip. Practice going back and forth in a continuous fashion. We're going to shift back and forth, collecting the weight with sink, stepping to the side with retreat, and turning the torso to sink the weight onto the standing leg. Step to the side, sink. Step to the side, sink. Retreat, sink. Retreat, sink. Retreat, sink. Retreat, sink. Now we're going to stop in the middle. When we stop in the middle without collecting, I'm using the core technique of set. So what I did was retreat, and I just change my lower torso to the right, not both my upper and lower torso, and that settles my weight in the middle. Let's start again from our standing position. We're going to sink, retreat, sink, retreat, sink, retreat, sink, retreat, set. Set, we're going to settle into place with our weight right between both legs. In the second part of this exercise, we're going to do the side step and collection, and then we're going to shift into side pulses and collection. So these are little jumps to the side, followed by the same collection. The difference between the side pulses and the side step is that once we collect using sink, I'm going to do a combination of two core techniques, which are push and pulse. Push is going to be extension of my standing leg hip, upper torso turning that way, away from it, lower torso turning towards that hip. That's a pushing action. That's going to start the jump, but then I'm going to complete the jump by turning the upper torso towards that standing leg to complete the jump. It takes two movements of the core in order to complete a pulse or a jump to the other side. It is really almost invisible, but that's really what's going on. Push, pulse, sink. Push, pulse, sink. Push, pulse, sink. So practice jumping from one leg to the other and landing with the weight fully collected on the other leg. There's two core movements to do the jump and then one core movement to do the collection. Push, pulse, sink. Push, pulse, sink. The movement of the core is really invisible, but that is what's pushing the body off of this standing leg. It's that rotation of the core that creates that final pulse motion. I can return to retreat, sink, retreat, sink, to step to the side. Pulse,